And I think a lot of people, when they're looking at these cars, are trying to decide, do I make this transition from this Altima to this Model 3 or to this Polestar or whatever? And how do I do that safely without losing a bunch of money?
Yeah, and then there's also a lot of people who live in multifamily housing, right? You know, if you're living in an apartment,
How do I charge?
How do I charge? And like, that's a big problem that we got to solve right now, because if you live in a single family home, yeah, it's easy.
Right.
Right? It's so easy. So when you go in neighborhoods, yeah, you see a bunch of EVs everywhere, because I have 2 chargers at home.
Throwing it in the garage is different than throwing it into a parking garage.
Yeah, but you know, I lived in an apartment where I didn't have charging, and you know, it became very unrealistic sometimes. Where
some of these parking garages won't even let you put in charging because of the fire potential. Right.
Or just and
that's a like a sub 0.5%, you know, type of occurrence. Right?
Yeah, ignorance.
But insurance-wise,
ignorance fuels fear, and fear causes irrational decision making, which then holds everybody back. Right?
We literally had a customer that had to get rid of her Tesla. This was her 4th Tesla with us. Had to get rid of it because the building that she actually was part owner in, their insurance policy wouldn't renew if they had EV chargers in the parking garage.
Did they also turn off all the electricity in the building?
I don't know.
There's too much of a risk factor here. All these lights.
We don't know if this is going to work.
Wait, we're putting AC in this building?
Yeah.
Nope. There's too much liability.
Right. But that's really how things are being looked at right now. Like, if you remember, like 5 years ago, where we were teaching a class to first responders on how to access these cars, what the access points are, and how to work with them in a first responder scenario. The education side of this is still required. That's the toughest thing right now when you're talking about selling cars. So much of it is education. And if there isn't anybody there to educate, and you're relying on a website, or you're relying on just the product sitting there ready for somebody to come look at, then you're really not going out to the people and showing them what's possible.
Yeah, and that's the argument against the whole dealer side trying to sell these things versus a manufacturer trying to sell these things. Because I mean, like, the people asking the questions today, we're talking about an industry that is literally 15 years old. People that are now looking to take the jump are asking the same exact questions that people were asking 15 years ago.
Right.
It hasn't changed at all. But the environment has changed. The infrastructure has changed. The vehicles have changed. Like, everything else has changed, but their questions are staying exactly the same. That tells me one thing. It needs to be very educational. It is a different shift. It's a different ownership experience. There's a lot of amazing things about it, but it's not translatable. You have to know basics of what is kilowatts, what is kilowatt hours, power differences.
And it's got to be interesting, right?
It's got to be interesting.
That's the other side of it.
But people are accustomed of learning these things, right? I equate it to the PC revolution, right? We went from no one having computers inside their homes to now everyone has a computer on them at every given moment of time.
Sure.
In that, it all happened within a 20-year period, let's say 30-year period, right? Within 30 years, 20 to 30 years, we went from only very few amounts of people knew what a megabyte was, storage or a hard drive, what is RAM and memory. No one knew what any of that stuff was. And now every single person knows what these things are, because that's how you determine which device you're going to buy.
But with autos, it's different, right? Because people individualize themselves. Their car is an extension of them from a stylistic perspective. So they like to customize their cars. They like to make their cars more like them. And there's a lot to choose from, right? When you're talking about computers and other devices, there's a finite amount of product to choose from, and it's usually the best product wins and it dominates. We're talking about cars. There's so much individualism that is out there. Look at you, you have your electric vehicles and you've got your gas vehicles for fun. But a lot of people, they have one car, they have to decide what's best for them. With all that there is to choose from, electric vehicles can feel daunting because of everything that's out there. Even though this may fit for you, you should be scared of this. And that's not necessarily the case with a lot of things, but it is with cars, because one wrong move and you're in negative equity, and that puts you in a place where you don't want to be.
Yeah, it's the second largest purchase that most people make, right? A home is number one, number two is a vehicle.
But now we're also trying to have a transition, treating cars like cell phones, and we're going to iteration hop, and we're going to the newest and best. And so people are looking at it like, how do I get the newest thing? And all of a sudden this car's evolving and it can become obsolete over the span of a couple of weeks like we've seen. Making that decision is a little bit of a task. The understanding all the elements involved is a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely takes some research because you have to buy when you talk about technology and you want it to last long, you have to buy what's on the forefront, right?
Right.
Rather than buying something that is kind of on the back end.
Yeah, Apple doesn't make a business out of selling their refurbished old stuff.
Yeah, exactly. But like, it's the age-old argument of, should I buy a PC, a Microsoft-driven product, or buy an Apple, right? Or do I go an Android, or do I go Apple, or go buy an iPhone, right? So, I think in every regard, do you buy a 5-year-old phone, right?
Right.
Or do you buy a new one?
When you go, you go.